Hey, this weekend we're talking about Lazarus, and it is the weekend of Easter, so it's kind of cool because it's not Jesus' resurrection, but it is that Jesus has power over death. Um, Anyways, the story of Lazarus is a really fascinating story, and we think that it'll almost teach itself. Meaning, you really don't need to have a lot of teaching points. The story just needs to be super well told. So go read the story of Lazarus. The two things that we think it super points out well, I keep saying super, and I'm going to keep saying super. The thing that it super points out is that Jesus is both God and he's man. We see his humanity because he weeps when he finds out that his friend has died, and that's one of the verses where we see his humanity the most. He was close friends with Lazarus and with his sisters Martha and Mary, and so he weeps when he finds out, and yet he feels like God tells him not to go right away, and he obeys God and shows his sonship by trusting God even when he's lost his friend. And so he chooses not to go right away. And then when he goes, Lazarus has been dead so long that he smells bad, and he calls him up out of the grave, and Lazarus rises from the dead because of Jesus' authority. So God, he's clearly God. So we get to see Jesus as God and Jesus as man in this story. Fascinating that Lazarus is dead so long that he stinks. That's a really funny point that you can pause on. But I think that there's all these rich points in the story about seeing Jesus as both human and seeing him as God in the story, and we want the kids to sort of take the time to see those things, so they shouldn't be over taught. It should just be a really well told story. One of the most bizarre verses is in 14 and 15 of John 11, where it says that he was glad that he wasn't able to come right away so that God's glory could be shown. And how often are we willing to experience sadness and that kind of thing just so that God's glory can be shown? So really cool story. We think that it'll teach itself if it's well told. So I would say for you service leaders, whoever's teaching, whether it's you or someone else, tell them to feel free not to wrap up every single point, but to just point out parts of the story that are strange without saying what that might mean. And then the pod questions are point out ways in the story that you see Jesus as fully human, and point out ways that you see God, Jesus as fully God in the story. So that's what they can talk about in their pods. Another thing that would be really interesting to emphasize, we talked a really long time ago on the battle, and we talked about flesh, soul, and spirit, and we feel like that's something that probably could be reiterated in CSM on a regular basis. So you see Jesus choosing his spirit to follow the spirit versus his flesh. Like in his humanity, he's weeping and he's sad and he wants to run to his friends, but he chooses, his soul spirit chooses to follow his spirit and to wait so that God's glory can be shown fully. So it might be a good week to emphasize that, but that would just be part of telling the story well, I believe. All right, I think that is everything for this weekend. There are no announcements again, although we probably do have a few spots left for Ichthus if you want to tell the leaders to tell the kids, but not make a big announcement about that. And I think that is everything. Oh, we'll also have a miracle video for you to show again, and it's kind of a cool one. It's a guy who probably should have died and didn't. So we're just trying to find modern day versions of these to break down the walls for us to believe that miracles still do happen today. All right, that's it, friends. See you soon. Bye.